my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Brianna, aka Dollface PA. For those of you who are returning, thank you for returning. Thank you for watching. Today's topic, I'm going to be discussing how to move to New York City. And some people may be watching this video thinking that's a weird thing to discuss, but it's really not if you're not from New York City. And somebody like me, I'm from the South. I guess you could say, like, I'm a country girl. Moving to a city like New York City was a culture shock in every way to me. And so many times I get the question, like, how did you wind up in New York City? Like, how did you do it? So many people want to move to New York City, or it's a dream of so many people to one day live in this city because it really is one of the greatest cities on earth. And I may be a little biased because I live here, but this is an amazing place. And if anybody watching this is considering maybe moving to New York City at some point or wants to move to New York City, I'm just going to run through a few quick points on things that you must know before you move here. I have now lived here for 3.5 years. I honestly really do love this city. There's a lot of love-hate that comes with living here, especially if you're from the South. You're used to the convenience of having a car and having laundry in your house and stuff like that. It can be a little bit of a shock, but I just want to share some of the tips with you guys that I've learned over the last 3.5, almost 4 years to prevent you from potentially making the same mistakes that I made when I moved to New York City. I don't really have friends here outside of my work friends, but I didn't know them when I moved here. I don't have any immediate family here, so y'all, in every sense, I was winging it. I didn't know what I was doing trying to find an apartment. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I brought my car up here, y'all, but we gonna get into it, okay? So stay tuned. So in this video, I think I'm just gonna go through a couple of quick points of just like high hitters, like things that you have to know when you live in New York City. I'm going to make a separate video about living arrangements in New York City because I just feel like if I put that in this video is gonna be way too long, because I feel like discussing how to find an apartment, where you should live, all of those things, if you're not from New York and you're not really familiar with how to go about doing that, I really want to go into detail about that. So I'm going to save that for a part 2 of things you need to know when moving to New York City. So boom, let's get into the first thing. Let's talk about the weather. So if you're anything like me, you're from the South, this cold up here in New York is different. It's different. First things first, you need to get a parka. For those of you who don't know what a parka is, it's a coat that comes all the way down. You can't see my whole body, but it comes down to like your knees or maybe like right above your knees. I'll never forget my first winter here in New York. I went and visited somebody in Queens, and I walked in the house with a North Face on, and where I'm from, a North Face is considered like a big coat. And I got asked the question, "Where's your coat at?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, where's my coat? This is my coat." And she was like, "Oh, no, you're not going to survive here in New York if you think that's a coat." And I remember thinking like, oh, whatever, like, but I'm telling you, by December of 2018, which was my first summer here, which was my first winter here, I was literally calling my mom, like, "Mom, the only thing I want for Christmas is a coat." Like, I was so cold. And the thing you have to know about New York is most people don't drive, so you walk everywhere. You're walking to the train. When you get off the train, you still have to walk to your destination. So you really have to have a very, very reliable coat. And I actually ended up getting a Canada Goose. For those of you who know, it's a very, very expensive jacket, but I felt that it was an investment that was going to be very useful for me because it's so cold here. My lovely parents gifted it to me for Christmas last year, but honestly, if you are moving to New York and you are willing to spend the money, it's worth the investment in my opinion. So that's number one, you got to get you a coat. Number one, part B. A lot of the reason why people think the cold up here is brutal is because they just don't know how to dress for it. You have to dress for the cold here. So in addition to a parka, you don't never leave the house without a scarf. Always have gloves in your pocket of your coat because your hands are going to be freezing. And yeah, you just got to be prepared for the elements. Number 2, never leave the house without an umbrella. So I've honestly come to a point, and I think I did this subconsciously, but I didn't even realize that I was doing it. I don't even buy purses anymore that I can't fit an umbrella in. You have to have an umbrella no matter where you go because, again, like I stated before, you're outside so much you never know when it's going to start raining. And the worst thing is to be like in a store somewhere and you come out the store to get ready to walk to the train and it's like, oh my gosh, it's pouring down raining. When I first moved to New York, I will never forget this. One day I went to Whole Foods and it started raining and I did not have an umbrella. And it's people like on the corner selling umbrellas for like $3, but I also didn't have cash on me. So I was just like, okay, like I'm just gonna have to walk to the train without an umbrella. And when I got home, it literally looked like I had just jumped in a river. Like I was drenched from head to toe. Always have an umbrella with you. While I'm on the topic of precipitation, you gotta get you a pair of reliable rain boots and you gotta get you a reliable pair of snow boots. So like, y'all, it sounds crazy because like when I was moving to New York and people would tell me stuff like this, I'm like, they're being dramatic. Like, what are they talking about? It's not that serious. I'm not paying $300 for a pair of Hunter boots or however much the Hunter rain boots are. I'm not paying for a pair of Sorrel boots, the snow boots, because those are also very expensive. But y'all, like, it really is that serious. And when you're out there in the elements, it's relentless. With the snow up here, if you're not from the north, if you're from like down south like me, where you're not really used to large amounts of snow, it snows up here. And the difference is here, life goes on. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a foot of snow on the ground. You probably still are going to have to go to work. Like, you're still going to be outside walking in it, so you got to dress for it. So get you a reliable pair of snow boots. Get you a reliable pair of rain boots. Number 3, find a good bodega or a deli near your house. So for those of you who don't know, that's the corner store. Some people call it the bodega, but a lot of people do call it the deli. And also, I feel like I'm turning into a New Yorker saying this, but the way that I determine whether or not I consider it a good deli is how good the chopped cheeses are. So if the chopped cheeses aren't good, I can't go to that deli. I can't support that deli with my money because a chopped cheese is a New York staple. For those of you who don't know, a chopped cheese is when they take the ground beef and they mash it up, and you can get it on a roll or a hero. A roll is like a circle and a hero is more like a sub. And then you can get like the mayo, onions, peppers, whatever you want to put on it, and it's bomb. And I feel like you can get a chopped cheese at any deli. It's a New York staple. Even if you visit New York, I think that you should go to a deli and get a chopped cheese because it's kind of like, I guess, Harlem's version of a Philly cheesesteak or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, if the chopped cheese is not good, I'm not going to that deli. And this deli's on every corner. So I have my designated deli near my house. It's good for dinner. If it's a late night, I don't feel like cooking, I'll go to the deli, get a chopped cheese. So chopped cheese is something that you definitely got to get when you're in New York. Number 4, I want to talk about the subway. So y'all, again, I came from the South. I had a car. When I was moving to New York, everybody was telling me, like, you do not need a car in New York City. Like, just take the train. Me, being little Miss Bougie, I was like, oh, no, I'm not taking a train. Like, I'm going to take my car. Like, what are they talking about? I'm not getting on that dirty train with those weird people. Baby, I had my car up here for all of 4 months before I sold my car. So the thing about having a car in New York is, first of all, there's nowhere to park it. Most, and by most, I would probably say 80% of the apartment buildings here in the city do not even have a designated parking lot or a garage where you can park your car, which means your only option is street parking. And street parking in New York, if you've never done it before, God bless you. You're very, very blessed to have never had to deal with it. If you have done it before, you understand why it's not really a feasible option for me to be doing every day with the way my work schedule is. Street parking in New York is next level. And I did it for a little while, but see, the problem is they have alternate side parking. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can't park on this side. On Mondays and Fridays, you can't park on this side between a certain amount of hours. So you're constantly moving the car and trying to find another parking spot on the correct side of the street. And with my job, I couldn't take it anymore. Like y'all know, I work 13-hour shifts. I would literally be having to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning on my off days to go move my car to the opposite side of the street. And most of the time, I couldn't even find a parking spot. So I would literally be driving around for 2 hours looking for a parking spot. Absolutely not. And I take the train to work. So I literally was not moving my car for any reason other than to like move it for alternate side parking. I never drove my car. If you know anything about Manhattan, the traffic is horrific. And so it's literally way quicker to get anywhere you want to go on the train in the city than it is compared to driving in most cases. So I did end up selling my car. I know a lot of people, that's a huge question people ask, like, do I need a car? You do not need a car. Please take it from me, somebody who was like very, very hell-bent on bringing my car here. You do not need a car. A car is a liability and a car is a headache. I had never been more happy than the day I sold my car. The subway is $2.75 for one fare. Very expensive, I know, like literally one way. A lot of jobs have a program where you can get like an unlimited monthly pass and they take it out of your check pre-tax. That's what I do. I think it comes out to like $126 a month, but that's well worth it when you take the train literally everywhere and it's just an unlimited pass. You can just use it as many times as you want. So that's personally what I do. And it's the best investment I have ever made in the way of like transportation. The subway is a great option because it helps you to save money. Like I know in my bougie mind, I used to think like, oh, like I'll just take Ubers. Let me tell you something about Uber in New York City. It's not regular Uber. It's expensive. It's expensive. It's just expensive. And if you're going to any of the other boroughs, because as you may or may not know, Manhattan is an island. So in order to get out of Manhattan, you have to take a bridge or a tunnel. So there's always going to be a toll. In most cases, if you're coming back into the city, the toll is like $15. Whether it's the Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel, GW Bridge, whatever, it's like $15, depending on like when you're doing it. But even to get out of Manhattan, there's a toll. So those tolls get added into the Uber fare. And then I believe it's 96th Street. They added a 96th Street surcharge. So if you're going below 96th Street, so if you're going anywhere downtown, Times Square, wherever, there's an additional surcharge. And depending on how many people are ordering Ubers at that moment, just like it is anywhere else, you get another surcharge. What I'm trying to say is Uber is very expensive. I have literally taken an Uber around the block before, and it was like $12. And I was in that Uber for less than 2 minutes. And so Uber is just not really a sustainable method of transportation if you're thinking about moving to New York. In my opinion, the subway is by far the most cost-effective mode of transportation if you're going to live here, and if it's feasible for you. Like I understand some people have like young children, or some people have, you know, physical disabilities that don't allow them to be walking up and down the steps of the subway. But if you are a young, able-bodied person, the subway is a great option. It also helps you to get your steps and your cardio in because you're going to be walking a lot. When I moved to New York City, I lost 15 pounds. The first time I went home to visit my family, my mother asked me if I was eating. I literally lost 15 pounds. You walk so much in the city, walking to the train, walking from the train, walking up and down the steps. Like, it's just a lot of good cardio. So that's also another plus. A lot of people have like anxiety about the subway, and I'm not gonna lie, I did too when I first moved here. I've never taken public transportation before. Like back where I'm from, I didn't even take the bus. I had a car. Like I had no reason to like be using public transportation. But the Google Maps app is spectacular. Actually, I don't even think it's Google Maps. It's just the Maps app on your iPhone. You literally put the address into where you're going. You hit go, and it'll give you the option like if you want to drive there, walk there, or take the train there. And you literally just click that option and it tells you exactly where to go to get on the train, which train to transfer to, and transfers are free, by the way. So like if you have to like transfer between trains, it'll be free. And it's really, really, really not as bad as it sounds. It's not as scary as it sounds. You just follow the signs. Like honestly, if you can read, you can do this. Another thing, how do you know what time the train is coming? So for people who are using public transportation to go to work, for example, myself, and we just had a girl that started at my job not too long ago. She just moved here from Ohio, and she just was like, I just don't ever know like when I should leave my house. Like, is the train coming in 3 minutes? Is it coming in 10 minutes? Got something for that too. So the Green Transit app is lit. It's so lit. That is the most reliable app. There are so many subway apps that tell you when the train will come, but a lot of them are wrong. I'm telling you, the transit app has never let me down. That is the app I use to get to work, and it will tell you the next 7 train is 6 minutes away, and then the next one after that is 16 minutes away, so you can kind of time it. If you know it takes you 10 minutes to walk to the train, then you can make that train that comes in 16 minutes. This is common sense, but definitely you need that app. You need that app if you're going to be taking a train. Let's talk about subway etiquette. So, if you've ever been on a New York City subway, you probably know There's a lot of interesting characters, to say the least, on the subway. There are some homeless people. There are some people with mental illness. There are performers. Sometimes people will just bring out a boombox and start dancing, start swinging on the poles. You might get almost kicked in the head. Honestly, you get used to it. But what I will say is if people are like approaching you, because sometimes it does happen, don't make eye contact with them. That is the number one thing that I tell people when they're here visiting me and there's odd things going on around us. Look at your phone, do whatever you gotta do. Don't make eye contact with people on the train who are trying to engage you, because a lot of them do have mental illness, and I have heard stories about people being assaulted on the train trying to engage with people. I'm a generous person. I love giving to homeless people when possible, but I'm gonna be honest with you, as a female, sometimes I'm on the train by myself. If somebody approaches me and asks me for money, I don't engage them. I don't have it. I don't have anything for you. You have to be very careful. Like, this is still New York City. So you kind of do have to have a little bit, you got to be about your wits. And while I'm on the topic of safety, I specifically want to pause there and say something about females. If you're a female and you're going to be in the city by yourself, walking around, you need to have some form of protection on you. I am going to say right now, tasers and stun guns are illegal in New York. You cannot have them. And so that's out. But mace, pepper spray is not. I would encourage you to get some pepper spray to put on your keys, because there's been a few times when crazies have approached me on the train and I'm like, all right, like, I really might have to pepper spray this person. You got to protect yourself. You really do. And people are crazy. That's just the reality of the world we live in today. And safety is always going to come first. So you need to protect yourself. My heat is coming on. It's very cold outside. But if you don't have the pepper spray, there's this, actually, I'm going to show y'all. I honestly don't even know what this thing is called. I think it's called Bad Kitty. Oh yeah, it is. My mom got this for me, and it's something that hangs on your keys. It looks very whatever, made of plastic, but when you're like walking outside by yourself, you can have your fingers in it like this. And these are so sharp. Like, if you were to get in a physical altercation, God forbid, and you needed to protect yourself, you could absolutely jab somebody with this. So this is also something you can have on your keys just for protection. But females, don't be out here in these streets with nothing on you. Don't get caught slipping like that, okay? Had to say that. Let me tell y'all something about Amazon Prime. I think this is number 5. I kind of lost count. But this is something that remains beyond me. For New York to be as big of a city as it is, Amazon Prime is just not Prime. I've never ordered something on Amazon Prime and actually received it in 48 hours. At minimum, it was 3 days. And God forbid I missed the delivery, because mail is a whole nother situation in New York. And I'm going to talk about that in my next video when I talk about living situations. But I don't know what it is. When I'm back home down south, I get my packages in 1 to 2 days. But here in New York, it has been many of times where they've guaranteed I'd have my package in 2 days, and it's taken me 5 days to get it. So that's just a disclaimer. I don't know if like there's just no distribution centers near here, which I find really odd because this is such a big city. But like, I've heard a lot of other people here in New York City say that they have the same problem. They do not get Amazon Prime packages in 2 days. So that's just something to be aware of. Bezos, you need to fix that, because we're paying for a service that we're not getting. But that's another situation. This is random, but I just feel like I need to say this. Whenever you're walking down the lovely New York City sidewalks, and boy are they lovely, you will see just about anything you can imagine on the sidewalk. From human feces, you will see rats. This is New York City. There's rats everywhere. Actually, this is their city. We live in their city. I heard a statistic that said there's like 3 times the amount of rats there are people in New York City. You're going to see rats. If you walk past a pile of trash on the sidewalk, which you will, similar to this, either cross the street or move as far away as you can from that pile of trash when you walk past it, because I guarantee you it's a family of rats underneath those bags having a party. And one of the things that I didn't know when I moved to New York, I didn't know that. Walked past a pile of trash one day on my phone, not paying attention, with some sandals on, and 2 rats ran nearly this close, they came to running over my feet. And rats are not afraid of people. They will run over your feet. So just be careful when you see piles of trash like that. The last thing I briefly want to touch on is the airport. If you are living in New York City, specifically Manhattan, because if you live in Queens, you may not live that far from JFK depending on where you live in Queens. Because if you live near Jamaica, you're right by JFK. But as everybody probably knows, there's 3 major airports up here. There's LaGuardia, which is LGA. There's JFK, which is the international airport. And then there's Newark, which is in New Jersey, which is also an international airport. So for those of you like figuring out how to get here, I'm gonna be honest with you. You can go to any of those airports. LaGuardia is the closest airport to Manhattan. So if you're trying to get to Manhattan, LaGuardia is gonna be your best bet. However, if you do go to JFK or Newark, there are public transportation options for getting into the city, and I take them all the time because I'm gonna be honest with you. An Uber from JFK to Manhattan can run like $70 to $80 and vice versa for Newark. They're very, very, very expensive. And like even now when I'm traveling, like sometimes if I want to like go on a trip and I'm like, oh, it's cheaper for me to leave from Newark, I just always like ask myself, well, am I gonna Uber to Newark? Because if I'm gonna Uber to Newark, I might as well just pay more for the flight and leave from LaGuardia because it's closer to Manhattan. But you can take the A train from JFK into the city. It's a very long train ride. It's like over an hour, but it's possible if you don't want to pay for that Uber. Similarly to Newark, you can take the NJ Transit train directly from Newark into Penn Station, which is on 34th Street. And from there, you can kind of transfer to whatever train you need to get on to get where you need to get. So it is possible. LaGuardia is definitely the most convenient, but like if you're flying internationally, LaGuardia is not an international airport, so you have to leave from either JFK or Newark. To me, they're about equidistant, depending on where you're coming from, but for me, they're about equal distance, so I don't really have a preference for one or the other. But yeah, that's it for now. Just like very random tips that have been like coming to my mind over time that I feel like I need to tell my people that are potentially considering coming to this concrete jungle, this amazing place that we love to hate. There are so many things that I cannot stand about this place, but it is also such a magical place, and there's so many things that I love about it. It is so crazy, and like you would never really understand it unless you lived here. But I'm gonna get into living arrangements and all of that in my next video in part 2. So y'all stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Be safe, be blessed. Happy holidays. It's the beginning of December. Oh my gosh. Today is December 1st, as a matter of fact. So happy holidays, y'all. I cannot believe we are at the end of this year already. 2021 has come and gone. But if you're watching this right now, God has kept us through this year, and I'm so glad. So I love y'all. Y'all be safe, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye. Love you.